In the last video, we were just talking a little bit about compass directions and bearings, and I was trying to give you an example of what I thought was really interesting is the way they name landing strips. So here I was trying to give you a really bad looking drawing of what you actually see from the airplane. This is my hands, by the way, on the little control wheel. This is what I would see. This would be the instruments here of the airplane. So, I'd see lots of little dials and things like that telling me about the speed of the plane. And as I'm coming in for the landing on the runway, on a map, the landing strip looks like this, straight up and down. But what you actually see these numbers kind of looking like this. You might see a runway called 09. Just to explain what that means, if I put this on a map, this number right here, that would be runway 09. And that's because they name the runways based on which direction you're facing when you land on it. So for example, here's a much clearer picture here that I found. So this one right here, if you're landing, if this is on a map, this is, north, south, and this is east, west here. If you're landing on runway 09, for example, if you're coming in your airplane like this right here on runway 09, that's because all you have to do is, if you want to add the bearing, we were just talking about bearings as a 3-digit number. What they do for landing strips, they just take away the last number because they don't want to use up so much paint, so to speak. So can you imagine just adding a 0 to all these numbers right here? And this will tell you everything you need to know. Watch this. This one here, 040, oops, and 180. So what this tells you is if you're landing, from the left here, landing to the right, if you see runway 09, that means when you land on it, you're heading exactly 90 degrees. In other words, you're heading exactly east on your compass. But if you land on the same runway, but maybe the wind is such that you're actually going to land on the other side of it, then you're going to be landing on runway 27 as you land this way, heading west, so to speak. So if ever you're in an airplane, sometimes, you can see on the plane, especially on these commercial airliners, you can see little videos, and sometimes they let you see what's going on in front of you, so to speak, as you're landing. Sometimes they have a little video that shows you what, the pilot sees, so to speak. It's really cool because if you know which number you see, if you see a big number on the runway, then you know which way they're heading. In other words, on this example here, although I sort of covered it up with my little bad job of a 0 here, if you're landing on runway 040, that means you're heading kind of northeast if you land this way, and so on. Well, that's actually pretty neat with navigation and bearings. So these degrees, compass directions, and bearings are all related. They're all about splitting up a circle into 360 even slices. Each of those is called a degree. And then compass directions are all about which way this little magnetic compass thing right here would point. So it points north, so we call that 0 degrees, so to speak. That would be north up here. And if you go to the right, well, that's east, and then it's south, and then it's west. So degrees, compass directions, and bearings are all related. However, you can also just look at degrees on their own like we did before here. If you just want to measure angles, you can, of course, just measure angles that way. For example, what if I wanted to, use this little protractor right here? I could have used it to measure the angle right here of this skier, for example. We can use, protractors to measure angles in any way. It doesn't just have to be directions if you're navigating. Okay, so degrees, compass directions, bearings, extremely important in so many different ways. Not only in skiing, finding out how many times you've turned around, or maybe in finding out where you are, or maybe just angles of things. You can find out heights of buildings this way using what we call triangulation, but all works with degrees. Okay, and then compass directions and bearings are useful for getting around, to actually physically find your way somewhere. Then we use compass directions and bearings.